Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next regular meeting is scheduled for Friday, October 9th, 2015 at 9 a.m. at the Community Center, 3500 Edgewater Drive, Sebring, Florida. Turn off your cell phones, please. We appreciate that. And text. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Any comments from the board? I only got one comment on the golf financials on page 4, and it's just a comment, it's nothing else, but as I get rid of this stuff here. I noticed the food and beverage sales were 189,000 ahead of forecast, but if I'm reading this right, and I'm no CPA, but it cost us 223,000 to generate the 189,000 in profit, and obviously we like to improve sales, but if we're going to spend more money to get the sales, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's the only comment I have. What's the answer? Well, the answer is to use current structure expenses to grow sales. You don't spend more money to get less sales, so. And I know Jim has nothing to do with that, but I'm just making a point of it, that's all. Okay, we'll move on to the action. Oh, wait a minute. Public comment. Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor Hurlburt.
Yes.
Supervisor Miller.
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig.
Yes.
Supervisor White.
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes. Action agenda, resolution number 2015-925-33, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to establish and adopt the final budget for the fiscal year 2016 based on the estimates of revenue and expenditures for the district's general, utility, and golf funds, confirm the proposed levy of operations and maintenance assessments for fiscal year 2016, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comment from the board?
About something in this budget?
Yes.
Yeah, I do have. I'm still struggling with this $180,000 water line extension. That I was hoping Gator would be here so he could put some detail to it, or some. I guess he's coming.
He should be here soon.
But this is part of the Northeast Drainage Project, and it's been said. I guess Kurt mentioned it at the last meeting that we're doing this because we got low pressure, and I guess my question is, what is the pressure?
I don't know.
You don't know? What's it supposed to be?
I don't know.
You don't know? So I was hoping Gator would be here. Number one, I want to know if it's anything at all to do with the Avon Park Interconnect. I know there was some discussion when they were fighting this fire over at where the building burned down. They said there wasn't enough pressure. I talked to those people who said they got plenty of water. It was too late to fight it because it was too far gone. There was also discussion that it was to eliminate a dead-end water line, and there's still a dead-end water line. They're removing the existing water line that's dead-ended on north of Ponce, and then they're locating a hydrant at the end of the line south of Ponce, where they're cut that line off, and then they're connecting to an existing line running west 168 feet, then they're running 240 feet north, and they're running 2,860 feet west to the line at Granello Street, and there's still a dead-end line. And it's a water line to nowhere. I don't see who's going to benefit because no one's going to tap into it. It just runs down to Ponce until it runs into this line down here. It looks to me that it's just not effective for anything. And I have a problem leaving $180,000 in the budget if nobody can give me any definition of why it's in there and for any reason why we should leave it in there. I think we need to address it when we talk about this northeast drainage, unless a gator can come in the door and clear it up now. We did it once before. We did a water line from Sun Lake Boulevard down Cortez about a mile for some kind of special interest for trying to get some water to Unit 11 where they thought they might sell some property to get redundancy when all they had to do was go a block over to Mexican Hat Drive to get redundancy, but no, they run it all the way down there. I don't think anybody's ever tapped into that water line. That was done 6-7 years ago. And the same thing's going to apply here. I don't see any benefit to the residents of this district to put a 3/4 of a mile of water line in that no one's ever going to tap into. So I've got a problem leaving it in there. I mean, I'll approve it with it in there, but I don't think it should be there. I don't know if anybody else has got any
Well, I would have
comment
the
about it, or
same
anybody else know
questions,
anything about it.
When do we get a definitive answer on that pressure situation, Tanya?
Well, Mr. Halbeck and I have discussed the pressures situation for that. What we're doing is we're looping those water lines, and I mean, any specific questions can be addressed when Gator gets here if y'all would like to do that.
Yeah, but there's no loop. They're not looping. They're not connected to the end of the line and then running it. And I could understand it. They still got a dead end line where you'll have to flush. And that's been the problem before. They say we don't want to flush it because we got a dead end line. We still have a dead end water line right before you get to Ponce and the frontage road. A lot of money.
Do you guys want to table this motion until Gator gets here and then bring it back up?
We can do that. I still have a question on something else.
Well, we could also leave it in there, and when we get to this northeast drainage thing, kick it out, because I did notice in the RFP for the northeast drainage, everything is separated, which is good. Normally they just roll it all into one number and you don't know what the heck you're going to get. But Gator did put this thing together and separate it, and this is separate.
Yes, all the cost estimates for that
Okay.
project are separated.
Okay. Tanya, on page 9, the line item for the maintenance facility shows 1.4 million. And I don't have that breakdown because we had a $200,000 allocation originally. Then we've taken money from what was it, drainage situation. So what is the number related to that from what we're paying up front and what we're taking from reserves? I don't have that breakdown at all.
The amount that we're taking from the Eura fund to pay for that project is $1,270,000, and that's on page 1.
1.2.
That's from Eurif, and the remaining funds will be from general assessments.
That doesn't add up because you got 1.4 for the maintenance facility. You got the 200,000 in there already. And if you do the math, we had 150,000 we took out of the drainage, and that was to be added to this. So I don't understand where the math doesn't add up.
Well, what we did is we had 1.4 million coming out of Eurif, and you asked us at the last meeting to reduce that number when we made some reductions in the budget. So we reduced it to 1,270,000.
You're missing my point. We had $200,000 allocated originally, and that has remained a constant. Then we talked about what we were taking out of the Eurif fund, in other words, out of reserves. But we also, at the last meeting, had an allocation that we were reducing the drainage 150,000, and that doesn't show up here. What I'm trying to get at, we should be paying as much as possible up front for this project, and it's not in there. So we're missing 150,000.
Dick, I think there was a discussion about that 150, and I think you made a comment, we just move it over to that. I think it was just taken out because it was a high number. I really do. It's really confusing because this thing's been going on for a long time.
Well, why are we dipping willy-nilly? Well, that's not correct. Why are we dipping into reserves when we have that money that we could allocate to this? What I'm trying to get at is we should be paying as much as possible, pay as you go. So where is that 150? Did that just disappear?
No, we reduced the EURA funding for the project is what we did. So the EURA funding at the last budget meeting was for 1.42 million. And now we're only going to pull in 1.27 million from EURA.
We're right back to where we were months ago. That was the 200,000. We haven't gained the 150. I want the 150 in there up front so that the EURA reserve fund would not be 1.2, it would be 1 point something. 05 or something. Am I in another planet here or what? You see what I'm saying at? What?
I can't follow you myself, but.
Dick, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. I mean, this is our final budget hearing. I would have been glad to address it, with you yesterday if we could have looked at it.
Well, this change came up at the last hearing.
Excuse me, Dick, what we did with that 150, even though there was some discussion about moving it over into this maintenance thing, it was just taken off, it was just reduced out of the budget, and it didn't get moved over there. In simple terms, I think that's what happened.
Well, I guess my next question would be why?
We reduced 150,000 out of the drainage maintenance budget. And to balance the budget, we also had some other changes, but what we've done is we've reduced the funding from EURA as requested by the board from the last meeting. We originally had 1.4 million coming out of EURA, and now it's only 1.27 million. The remaining funds for the project will be paid either from prior year fund balance or general fund assessments.
Okay. I don't think that's right. We go into reserves and we got 150 there we could apply up front.
Any more comments? Public comment?
My name is Bill Jackson, resident. I'm sort of amazed that we have 180,000 in the budget, extra Mr. Halbig was talking about. And we don't know how it got in there. Who sponsored it? Is that the standard policy around here? Just throw the money in and see if someone catches it? I think we should ask all the supervisors and the staff here, do they know anything about that money?
I can respond to that, I think. There was some discussion earlier in the year about a interconnect between the two sewer plants in order to balance those sewer plants.
I understand.
And it was about $150,000 to $180,000. And everybody thought maybe that's something we need to look at. But when it showed up in the budget, it showed up as a water line extension, $180,000. It never was discussed before that. I mean, there was some discussion about it, but that was what happened. That interconnect money never showed up, but this did at that point in time.
Well, that still sounds the same. No one knows where it come from or who authorized it to put in there. And I don't think anything in a public community, it's just 180,000, that was someone threw it in there. We should find out who put that in there and if they had the authority to put it in there. I don't think this approval of this budget should go through until we get some of these questions answered. And that Mr. Miller should understand fully what they're doing with the RIFI fund. By the way, I think we should have a public thank you to the residents of Thunder Lake for that money in the RIFI fund. because they're the ones that put it there on top of their water bill. And that money just sits in there, and we keep paying it every month. And all of a sudden, when you guys want to take something out of it, you do. So I want to thank the public for their good-hearted nature and knowing that this money was taken out of their pockets. It's not a water fund, it's something else. So thank you, public, and then don't get upset by it, just because you're paying all that money every year. But are we going to do anything about this $180,000?
Bill, let me answer that.
Okay.
That was proposed originally in connection with the North End Drainage Project. And it was proposed by our Public Works people. And it was thoroughly discussed by this board. And it was incorporated in the budget. But Supervisor Halbeck raised some questions when there was some confusion, I guess, about the pressure of that and the purpose of that. So it was fully discussed. It was in there. And it was proposed by staff. But there's still some questions, as you heard this morning, on whether or not that's really needed. So that's where we are.
Was it voted on?
Well, originally, we had a series of discussions. It's in there. It was discussed. But it hasn't been questioned up until a meeting or so ago.
So there are
But
no.
yeah, the procedures were followed. There's no question about that. That's what I guess I'm trying to say. Procedures were followed. And Supervisor Halbeck has raised, a reasonable question as to whether or not it's required.
Well, I'm not being critical of Mr. Halbeck.
It's what?
I'm not being critical of Mr. Halbeck.
Well, I'm just saying the process was followed correctly. But there's still a question on this.
Also, before I sit down, I have a general comment to make about your budget process. When I first got here, 10, 11 years ago, we had a budget process where the public was invited in. We had the boss of that division come in, sit before the board, and justify his budget. They'd go through it and look at things on there, and they would justify it. It seems like now it's just somewhere off in the mist, that all this stuff gets done after a regular meeting when people are tired anyway. And this just stuff gets done. I personally like it the other way. I want to see a boss come in and justify the money he's going to get and tell us what he's going to do with it. We don't see any of that anymore. And I don't think, since we're paying the bills anyway, why we shouldn't have a better process for this. Thank you.
Tom Costi, resident. Bill is right. A lot of things used to happen in the budgeting process, including whenever a capital expenditure was included in the upcoming year's budget, a justification sheet was provided by the general manager for each item with an explanation as to what is needed, what the cost is, and how it's justified, and whether or not the general manager recommends it to be passed. That form has not appeared in, 5, 6 years. Bill, you remember the form. We don't do any of that anymore. As far as voting on this budget, that's about to take place. That's what we're doing. None of this stuff has been approved until these guys approve what's written in this budget presentation. And that's why it was brought up. I'm sure that's why Mr. Miller brought it up. And it is sad that nobody can explain it. Gator's here now, and perhaps he can. Other thing I'd like to say is when we talk about reserves, we forget URF is a utility reserve, is a utility fund. By virtue of when it was created, what it was entitled, and what its stated use was to be for. The utility department is an enterprise funding. It's not government funding. Drainage is not enterprise. Drainage is a government expense. It's not a utility expense. What we don't do, when we approve upcoming year's budget and there's all these capital equipment expenditures are in that budget, somehow money gets moved from various funds to cover the shortfall. our interim statements do not indicate a total shortage deficit between the amount of money that we're expect to be taking in this coming year versus what we expect to spend. Right now, if you go through and examine those statements, we are about to approve a budget wherein we're going to spend more than $2 million more than what we're going to take in this year. But you won't find that specifically stated in the interim financing statements, the monthly statements that come out. Nor will you find it, I don't believe, in this budget presentation that you're about to approve. You have to go through and see about this transfer and that transfer. But there's nowhere where we show the amount of money we expect to take in and the amount of money that we're expecting to spend if we pass this budget. And I think it's high time that we get that straightened out. I mean, most of us are from the private sector. We don't understand government funding. Government seems to have access to free money somehow. It just never comes to the surface. We're going to do all these wonderful things, but if you look, we're about to pass a budget that's going to spend over $2 million more than we expect to take in this year. And one of them is by taking money out of the water department and paying for a maintenance building, which is a government function, not an enterprise function. Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Rusty Carino, resident. I have two concerns this morning. Number one, the Eurythia account is a slush fund. It has been used for everything in the world. Okay, my next concern is very simple, is once this budget has been approved, is it going to be published in a newspaper like all the other budgets for the city of, that's being published currently? Thank you.
Back to the board. Just response to Tom Costi on page 1. It shows our total revenues are 3.7 million, and it says total revenues, but basically to balance the budget, it's saying the same thing. We're going to spend 5.8 million. So right there, it tells you that we have a shortfall of over $2 million. So it is very plain there. So, Dave, you want to address Gator on your questions?
Gator, I had this question, and I've had it the last 2 or 3 meetings when we were going through this about this, the water line. I call the water line to nowhere on that runs from the south, well, from now after it's done, if it is get done, from the south side of Ponce down to connect to the existing line and over north to Ponce and down Ponce. And my question was, what benefit are we going to get from it? Mainly because I know it's a big number and we've got it in the budget, and I know there's been discussions about pressure, not enough pressure, redundancy, which we're not going to get because we still have a dead end line, according to the drawings that I've gotten. And I also wanted to know if this Avon Park interconnect has got any. Is that a part of what we're doing here?
Okay, for the record, Gator Howerton, so she can remember that on writing it up. That portion of that water line is not essential. I mean, the nuts and bolts of it is not essential, no, sir. We could get by, we've done fine without it for quite a long time. We can get by without it. It would be good to loop the system because we do have a long dead end line there. Now, you're right, there will still be a dead end. If we did what I have planned out right now, we would have a short little dead end that's only to one fire hydrant. So basically, it's just a long fire hydrant service is all that is. There would be no other consumers behind that. It's just a fire hydrant there for that intersection of Ponce and 27 in frontage road. Otherwise, it'd be looping the system coming in from that whole turner. As it is right now, the water lines tee off right there at Valnera, which is by where we built the Unit 4 pond, there by where Buffaluca is at the little strip mall. It tees right there, and that line from there north all the way to Ponce is a dead end on that whole segment. It's a 6-inch line. It's quite big enough to handle the services for everyone in there, for Turner Furniture and anyone else that's going to develop in there. It'll handle that fine. What we would possibly have, though, is potential of an issue if there were a fire. Having fire flows, it will still have a minimum fire flow, but it would be a minimal fire flow. If we were able to loop that system around, it would also, not only does it prevent the stagnant water in that end down there we have to flush out very commonly. We have to go out there and we waste a lot of water flushing that line out. It would prevent having to do all that flushing, but it would also give a second source of water coming into that area if we needed a high flow. And we experienced that whenever we had the fire across the street, across the road, across 27 at Camper Corral. It wasn't our doing. We were just simply able to help out because we had fire hydrants in the area. They closed down 27 and run a fire hose all the way across and connected onto our fire hydrant. But we were only able to give them around 800 gallons a minute or so is all we could push because they happened to connect on the dead end side of that T. Had they went to the other side of the T, I think we could have given them a lot more water. It's not essential. No, sir, certainly not. It just would be beneficial in a catastrophic event of having a large fire at, say, Turner Furniture or one of the doctor's offices. We're going to have several fire trucks hooking up to the fire hydrants and pulling off of them. So it would be helpful in that situation. Hopefully that never happens. The most useful reason for doing that would be just to prevent the dead end line and the flushing that we have to do at the current moment. And as far as your question about the interconnect, water from that interconnect would go for the areas up in Unit 25, which is name's skipping my mind right now, but going up towards Columbus, that kind of goes up on the north end of the things. Water that would go to that area, a lot of that water would flow that way if we were using the interconnect at that particular time. It would give more of an arterial system to send the arteries out and send the water out. But it's purely the board's pleasure. If you don't wish to do it, I'm not going to argue with you on that. It is certainly not something that has to be done.
You've gotten, I don't know if we can even talk about this, but you've already got a response to the RFP for the northeast drainage, right?
Correct. Yeah, bids were collected on that, correct.
And you had everything separated, including this water line. Is that a separate
Correct.
Item on that?
It is a separate item on there, and I've done that intentionally in case we did need to change something, take something out. We could do that.
How close does that come to this number? Is it less than this number?
I don't have those in front of me. I don't recall, but I think they were fairly close to what I had estimated, but I don't recall that. We'll have that at the next meeting. We were planning on bringing it to the next meeting, but I don't have that information with me today.
Gator, you referred several times to the fire hydrants, and we've been more or less derelict in the last couple of years checking that pressure and flow and so forth. Where are we on that? Are we recovering that program?
Mike Hurley and I are going to implement the program of testing our hydrants. We haven't done so yet, but we are.
Well, I would suggest we get to that as soon as possible.
Well, Gator just gave me a map a couple weeks ago of all the hydrants in the district, so we're going to move forward with that project.
Any more comments?
Yeah, real quickly on the $150,000, I want to make sure the board understands what we did is we reduced the drainage expense by $150,000. On the other side of that, we also reduced $150,000 from the URF funding. Okay, so instead of taking $1.4 million from URF, we're now taking a reduction from that at the board's request from the last meeting. Okay, so that's where the $150,000 comes to play.
Okay.
Call the roll.
Supervisor Miller,
What are we voting on?
the final budget.
Final budget.
Have we resolved the 180,000?
Well, we can,
Well, I think, I'm the one that brought the issue up. As far as the 180,000 is concerned, now that we've got some definition on it, and this is the first time we ever got any definition on it. It's going to be hard for us to just decide it on the fly. So I'm okay with leaving it in, and then when we talk about this northeast budget, northeast drainage thing, we can either take it out or decide what to do with it, rather than hold this thing up to be approved right now. So,
Okay, David, that's That's a correct procedure?
Yes, sir. That's doable.
Okay. Then I vote yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Hurlbert?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-925-34, a resolution of Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District amending Resolution 2014-12/19-39 to reschedule the November meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Need a motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Go ahead.
Attached for your consideration is a board meeting date change from Friday, November 6th to Friday, November 13th, due to the Florida Hospital Foundation announcement that their annual golf tournament will be held that day.
That's our only meeting in November?
That is our only meeting in November. Yes, sir.
Obviously, somebody sitting up here is going to play golf in that thing.
Apparently.
I'm not. I mean, if no one's playing, then I don't have a problem with.
Yeah, I don't have a
if somebody- If
confirmation.
somebody's playing, then maybe, because we've moved it for that, it's a kind of a unusual thing, but, so we got people playing in it? Anybody here?
I assume so.
No. I'm not.
Well, I am then. How's that?
Okay.
That's fine.
I figured that probably
Well, why
somebody was
not?
playing, but I'm okay with moving it, because I've had the same request myself before.
Okay. Public comment? Back to the board? Call the roll?
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Hurlbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. Need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-925-35, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to approve Budget Amendment 2015-6. Go ahead, Tanya.
Motion to approve?
Oh, I need a, come on,
Motion to
guys.
approve.
Second? Somebody second?
I'll second it. I thought you did.
I can't.
Attached is a resolution for Supervisor Halbig to continue his relationship.
No, wrong one. We're talking about the amendments to the budget.
I
Ginny Cox's
apologize, sorry
memo.
about that. I was moving ahead. We have two budget amendments incorporated into one resolution here today. The first is for the security department pickup that suffered damage as a result of an accident. We did receive insurance proceeds for this accident, so we'd like to amend our budget by $5,529. The second budget amendment we have is for the general manager's, previous general manager's payout due to his retirement, and in that payout was salary and wages, vacation, and sick time. In order for the budget amendments to occur, we are requesting that we reduce our contingency in the general fund by $23,620 and the utility fund $29,600.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Board comment? Public comment? Back to the board? Call the roll?
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Hurlbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-925-35, a resolution of Sun and Lake Improvement District, excuse me. -38, a resolution of Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to approve the hiring of legal defense counsel for Supervisor Halbig in response to the investigation initiated by the State Attorney's Office.
So moved.
Second.
I've got my Farm 8B.
I'm getting carpal tunnel.
Board comment? Public comment?
I got
Wait a minute,
comment.
wait a
Oh,
minute.
I'm sorry.
I got comment. I can comment, but I can't vote. I noticed in these last requests, this paragraph 4, in the resolution. That's never been in a resolution for legal representation before. I know there's been a lot of discussion about, and problems with even people on the board about my attorney's hourly rate, and that's probably what precipitated this. But this board, this district is they're either gonna support and give legal defense to these supervisors, or not. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've never, we've never questioned Sizemore and Gonzalez's hourly rate. We've never questioned anything. It's all about the ultimate bill and how productive the attorneys are. And I don't think there should be any stipulation. We're either going to support them or we're not going to support the people that get in this situation. They don't put themselves here, and I don't think there should be any limit on it in regards to that. I mean, I don't remember anything ever being taken advantage of. Nobody had any problem with the Brian Koji bill that he was called in here without any board approval. That's already $4,000 higher than what my bill is. $75,000 to fight the Severino case, no limit. Who knows who's looking at that and trying to figure out whether or not we're getting a good deal or not. It's just, to me, it's a slap in the face and an insult to these people on the board to put that paragraph in there. And I don't know why they put it in there, other than the fact that there was some dialogue or some discussion.
Maybe David can enlighten us. Why is that in there?
Back at the May 29th meeting, there was some discussion regarding this the first time, when the complaints that came up from Mr. Griffin's complaint. The May 29th resolution was then amended on June 10th, and that included this language. Then, basically, when the new discussions came out, because they did not involve 09-10, because no complaint had yet been filed, I just basically removed all the language from 09-10 and left the remaining language. Now, because indictments have come down, we are again under 09-10 and 09-67, which specifically includes that language. If you look at Resolution 09-10 that sets out the policy, it states that in the event legal representation or defense is provided pursuant to this resolution, the indemnities may either A, retain legal counsel appointed by the district, in which case legal counsel shall be paid directly by the district, or B, retain legal counsel chosen by the indemnities, in which case the district shall have the right to 1, approve in advance any agreement for legal fees or disbursements, 2, pay all or part of the legal fees, costs, and other disbursements, and to set a maximum for legal fees, costs, and other disbursements. 3, direct the defense and settle or compromise the action or claim. And 4, any monies that may be payable by the district shall be reduced or offset by any court costs or attorney's fees awarded to the indemnities.
Well, let me stop you right there. What you've done is you've created a legal morass that you're going to have everybody on the board looking over their shoulder, not just 2 weeks from now or 6 months from now or a year from now. That's an indeterminate statement, and it has no place in what is a very simple procedure. And at the let me finish. And at the last meeting, we had a former supervisor that came up here and simply said that you're entitled to legal defense, and if you're found guilty of that whatever charge, you pay it back. Very, very simple. And what we have, and I should mention, by the way, it got into my resolution, and that was overlooked. And as far as I'm concerned, I want it out of there, because that is, besides what Supervisor Halbig is saying is about being insulting, which it is, what you've done is created a situation that you could pop up at any time with a board change or down the road. You have an indeterminate axe over our heads, and it has no place in this process.
Let me add something. I reviewed all of the other resolutions prior to this particular situation where legal representation was given to supervisors, and that language never was ever in there. So is that a new law, or is that old that you just read?
This is Resolution 09-10 passed by the board,
What year?
2009.
Well, none of that language ever showed up on any resolution prior to this particular incident where there was restrictions on legal fees. I'm sorry. Can I make a motion, since I can't vote on this particular issue, can I make a motion that paragraph 4 be stricken from this resolution?
I don't believe you can, no, sir.
Well, then I'll make the motion.
Just to let you know, it doesn't matter if it's stricken or not. The board policy under 09-10 gives the board that authority. So if you don't like that authority, then you need to change your policy.
Need to go back to the original.
You can make a motion to take it out, that's fine.
Well, do I have a second?
Can it be taken out now?
You take it out now. We haven't approved the resolution.
Well, if you approve the resolution with the language the way it is, and you can't come back later and vote not to pay his bill, right? Or part of it.
That's exactly what it says.
The district policy created in Resolution 09-10 states that if the indemnity chooses their representation, the district has a right to make those decisions.
After the fact.
After the fact, that's correct. The district would be the one controlling the representation, and the district is the board, that's you
Yeah,
guys.
that's it, that's all. I don't see an issue with it on this one, but I think future, you should take it out. It's in mine too, so.
We can take it out of this resolution, can we not? I mean, this particular resolution?
You can take it out of this resolution, the policy, however, will not change.
And can you amend my resolution?
Yes, that had to be a separate action.
That's okay, can you?
Oh, yeah, we can do it, we'd put it on for the next meeting.
But he's saying it'll still be overruled by 9-10.
Well, we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. It's just sitting up here, and you're affected by this as well.
It's in mine as well. I guess I don't feel as threatened about it myself, but.
Well, you should, and the fact that resolution was written prior to other resolutions for legal representation where it wasn't in there is a problem for me. It didn't show up until this last go-round.
The original complaints filed by Mr. Griffin involved 2 supervisors getting legal representation. That May 29th meeting, there was a discussion based on the resolutions as presented that time with Mr. McClure being here. Mr. McClure came back and directed me to make changes to the resolution that reflected what occurred at the meeting on the 29th. And that language got included based on the language in 09-10.
I should have brought mine, old one, but it wasn't in that. I looked at the one that I was given in this Griffin matter, and it was not in that resolution.
That's correct, because it was amended after the meeting, based on the conversation at the meeting.
You guys have a way of not doing it right in the first place and coming back and trying to correct it based on whatever you decide to do. It's ridiculous.
All righty. Any more discussion?
Well, I have a motion to take it out. I don't have a second.
Take it out or what?
I can second it. I guess it doesn't matter either way to me.
It doesn't
so I'll
matter to me
second.
either. I can second it.
So do we need a vote on the amendment, or do we have vote on?
That's correct. You'll vote on the motion to amend by removing paragraph 4.
All right.
And then after that's voted on, then you'll come back and vote on the motion as or as not amended.
Okay. Go ahead, you're the one.
What? I made the motion, you seconded it, we're
What, don't you
ready
have
for,
to-
I've said my piece.
Don't you need to restate it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you have it? You have the gist of my motion?
The motion, you just moved to amend the resolution by removing number 4.
Yeah.
Which places
Okay,
limitations
that's
on it.
clear.
Okay.
So you'll ask for public comment on that,
I
then bring
will.
that to a vote, and then the motion as or as not amended will be public comment and voted on too.
Public comment?
Tom Costi, comment on the amendment to the resolution. I don't recall hearing in Mr. Shoemaker's explanation of 0910, I don't recall hearing the words hourly rate. I think those words came up at a board meeting back in April or May when this thing first came up. I think one board member questioned whether or not we could should limit the hourly rate. I don't understand that thinking. The hourly rate is an open-ended T&M contract for an attorney. I can understand putting a cap on the total ahead of time. That makes some kind of sense. But you can hire a $150 an hour attorney, and he can make a career out of a case if you have approved the $150 an hour rate. But if you put a $10,000 cap on it, that caps it. Then the attorney has to decide, am I going to handle this case for $10,000 or not? That would make more sense to me. Secondly, some of these procedures have become chaotic. I'm not sure, but I think it's in Form 8B that states that a supervisor or a public official, it's in the statute, who is elected by a popular vote in a regularly scheduled election can not only not vote, but he cannot participate in the discussion. Is that not true, Mr. Shoemaker?
I have to review the form.
You have to review, I think it's on the form. I believe that Mr. Helbig handed you the form. Maybe it's not there, but it does reference a particular statute. However, a landowner elected supervisor can fill out a Form 8, but is allowed not only to participate, but also to vote. That's the difference between a landowner elected seat and a popularly elected seat. We have the landowner elected seats on this board are Kurt McCullough and Larry White. However, I'm sorry, but I think, according to statute, that Mr. Helbig was not allowed to participate in this discussion. I'd like an explanation of that to be made public, at least by the next meeting. Thank you.
I don't know. Back to the board. So we're calling the roll on the amended version, right?
Amendment.
Call the roll.
Wait a minute.
Okay, I thought everybody was done.
Is this on the amendment or
Yeah.
the resolution?
Amendment.
Rusty Carino, resident. I think the amendment is kind of self-serving. I think you pointed out today that we need to change this form of government that we have right now before us because we have two different boards, two different types of supervisors being treated differently. And I think that this should come up so that all our supervisors are treated equally. And I think that this needs to be adjusted. I think our whole charter needs to be adjusted because of the situation. Now, let's get back to this resolution here, okay? I'd like to ask the question of each one of you. When or were you ever given any instructions on the Sunshine Law? Mr. Rick?
Yes.
Were you given it?
Yes,
By whom?
by the district. When I was sworn in.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
The same?
Mr. McCullough?
No comment.
I've got copies of it. I was given a copy, and I've also got one on my computer because they update that every once in a while.
Okay, Mr. White?
Mr. McClure went over and gave me a copy of it.
Okay, Mr. McClure and Mr. Halbig, Mr. McClure did the same thing with you? Mr. Rick or
No.
Albert? Hello? Was Mr. McClure the gentleman that gave you the information as well?
No, I got a book,
Oh, you
a
got a book.
Sunshine Law book, and when I was sworn in.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What's the role of the attorney in your case here as far as the Sunshine Law? Mr. Schumacher?
I do not represent any individual board member, only the board as a whole. So
You
their
don't
individual counsel has, only the attorneys or the supervisors that obtained individual counsel.
So you being an officer of the court, it's not your duty to inform each one of these people about the Sunshine Laws and that they may encounter them?
They were informed when they took office,
Okay.
or so I've been told by my predecessor.
Okay, so you've been told. Okay.
Rusty, let me interrupt for one question. The business about not representing individual supervisors, does that apply to staff at all, as well?
No, because the district is a corporate body, and so any employees, staff included, would fall under that umbrella. This firm cannot represent individual board members because of the exact situation we're facing right now. Potentially.
But you can represent individual staff.
No, well, I represent not individual staff, I represent members of the staff as employees of the district.
If the general manager gets into trouble, could you represent that person
I represent the office of the general manager.
and department heads?
Correct.
So in effect, you do have representation for staff, but not for the board.
No, I have a representation of the board as a whole, as a body.
Well, I realize that. It's a very simple question.
So my understanding is you represent them as a whole. You don't represent any of these people out here, you don't represent the district, the people that are paying your salary, correct?
Individually? No.
No, but generally. In other words, what I'm driving at, sir, is that our attorney in the past has not represented, as far as my concerns are, our best interest. I mean, we've got into too many problems. And the reason why I'm saying this, and I'm speaking so vehemently about it, is that it seems like we're setting a pattern. And as an officer of the court, I thought it would behoove you to make sure every gentleman is informed of the Sunshine Laws because you're going to hold them accountable. And as far as, and that affects my thinking. Is that if they understand the Sunshine Law and they do things in violation of the Sunshine Law, I am not in favor of using our checkbook as a personal fund for anybody to have unlimited funds to pay for any attorney. The reason why is we got burned before. Mr. Halbeck mentioned the name Mr. Severino, cost us $75,000? I don't like digging into my pocketbook and paying $75,000 for someone's law for legal defense when this could have been spearheaded off from the very beginning by knowing the Sunshine Law. That's my whole point. And as an officer of the court, it behoves me that I think you should take the attorney that's being paid by us should take the lead, making sure that everyone understands and we don't get into trouble. And then if any of these guys violated the law, the Sunshine Law, then they're on their own, unless they are proven innocent. And like Mr. McCosty brought up, I think a set amount should be set aside to take care of the pay for the legal fees, provided they are found innocent, provided they are acting in the scope and representing the best interests of our district. And that's what I'm for, okay? Now, We faced this once before. I think we need to resolve it. Tanya, I've asked before when we got with Mr. Severino's situation, what is Highland County doing as far as paying attorney fees? What is Sebring doing? Have you checked into any of these? What is their procedure? Have you checked into this?
Regarding sunshine law violations?
Yes.
No,
How
sir.
they pay for the attorney?
I don't know. I'd have to research that.
I think I strongly would represent, I would go to Avon Parks, to the Highlands County, to Sebring, and find out what is their procedure as far as paying out for legal fees.
I can maybe help you with a bit of that answer because this resolution, 09-10, that we've been talking about is based under Florida statute, which is Florida statute 111.07.
Okay, so this is Florida statute that we're talking about.
That's correct.
So it doesn't have to be included in our bylaws. So you see, this is where I think the attorney that represents us, if they're representing us, should be informed and let these people know exactly what the Florida statute is. I think it should be part of their job. Okay? I do not like using our funds as a private piggy bank for anybody. But by God, if they're doing their job and in the scope of their business, they're representing us, then I think we should offer some protection for them. But I think they have the responsibility of not getting into personal issues, and making this from a little molehill into a mountain. And I think they need to take some responsibility on this themselves. Thank you very much.
Frank Goliabi, resident. There's a booklet issued by the state on the Sunshine Law, and it's very comprehensive. The only problem is you can't possibly memorize every single word in that book. It's getting to the point you can't even say good morning to somebody else without, if somebody has ulterior motives, they could file a claim against you because you talked to another supervisor, whatever the discussion may be. This whole country is entangled in lawyers and laws, and it's getting kind of ridiculous. You can't get anything done. And I think this is a prime example of what happens. Now, the supervisors themselves need to familiarize themselves with the Sunshine Law. I realize there's a whole lot of stuff in there, but please, before you talk or send an email, think. If you receive an email from another supervisor, don't even open it.
Frank, I don't think you identified yourself before you spoke.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
You did? Okay.
Back to the board. I'm calling the roll on the amendment portion of this resolution.
Supervisor Holbert,
Yes.
Supervisor Miller,
Yes.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
President McCullough.
Yes.
Now a motion and a second to vote on the
No, not a motion,
resolution.
second.
We need a new motion?
No, your motion's already on the table. It's discussion on the motion as amended now.
Okay. Board discussion? Public discussion?
Bill Jackson, I'd like to ask Mr. Halbig, did you suffer any medical expenses for getting those knives removed from your back?
Did I do what, sir?
Well, when those knives were put on your back at the last meeting, did you suffer any medical expenses that your insurance didn't cover?
No, I might have had a drink or two more, but other than that,
Well, that's good. Just try facing these people so you won't get knives in the back. We have nothing to worry about today because the chickens have come home to roost.
Larry Bertetto, resident. When this is approved, is there a time limit that we can continue, that Mr. Helbig gets protection, gets legal advice? Because as it was stated many months ago with Mr. Griffin, he's not going away, regardless of the outcome. That man will continue to keep bringing up something. He's already proved that over the time when we should have fired him how many months ago. and he keeps bringing up things, and it'll continue. So how long are the supervisors protected with attorney fees?
Larry, I think every situation is unique.
Right.
The complaints are one thing, the sunshine law violations are another thing. If somebody does something else, it's going to be unique, and we'll have to go through all this over
Every
and
time.
over and
Every
over
time.
again. That's what I'm thinking.
The attorney?
Correct. Based on the district's providing of legal representation for the supervisors is based on complaints.
So then what I'm getting at is our board turns over, and I don't know who goes off the board next or what have you, but if a person who goes off the board, I believe someone goes off in January, and if that person goes off in January and is not reelected, decides not to run, and all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, someone comes up with the claim against Mr. So-and-so, does that person have legal representation?
As a non-supervisor?
Pardon me?
As a non-supervisor?
Well, it's brought up. He's off of the board.
They're only indemnified.
He's off of the board, and someone brings up the fact that Mr. So-and-so, Supervisor So-and-so, did something in July, and it's now February. Is he defended? Are we going to defend that person?
Well, the board only indemnifies employees or specific people that are listed as indemnities. If you're not an employee, then conceivably you would not be an indemnity.
I didn't say employee, I said supervisor.
Or supervisor.
Supervisors are employees of the district, sir.
Yeah, I think what Larry is asking, David, I think what he's asking is if a person retires or gets off the board, and then there's some kind of a charge brought against that person after he retires, but yet that charge is related to his time on the board and his duties. Question, is he represented or not? Was that correct, Larry?
Yes.
He could request representation if it occurred during his acting as a board member.
That's what I would assume, but assume we didn't always get it.
So then we would cover that person, protect him.
If requested, the board would have the option.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would
I
be
assume-
subject to approval of the board at that time, Larry.
Pardon me?
That would be subject to approval by the board at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Tom Costi. I believe that back in '09 or '10, when that situation was up, there was some discussion, you probably find it in the minutes, about liability insurance. Numerous organizations who, for instance, homeowner associations, et cetera, our liability insurance policy covers errors and omissions of officers and staff while serving on the board or for the organization. And I don't know if the district ever followed through at that time with regard to our insurance policies. Is this item covered by the district's liability insurance? Is there errors and omissions in the general comprehensive plan for the district?
There is, and we've inquired with public risk.
Okay, so we do inform the insurance company when this situation like this takes place, and they chime in, and they do, I believe the terms of those policies normally state that the insurance company has the ability to also limit or select the attorneys that they would fund to cover this kind of an operation.
We've only informed them, that's all. That's as far as we've gotten so far.
So they haven't chimed in, they haven't set a limit, or they haven't responded to the information?
I don't have an update on that.
Well, if that's the case, then I would say that the insurance company is probably on the hook for whatever comes of this, if the supervisor is found innocent in the end.
Possible.
The other thing, I think if you check the law firm's contract, there's a paragraph in there that says that the law firm will give the Board of Supervisors advice on the individual statutes. And I think that means a little bit more than just handing somebody a sunshine booklet and assuming, here, read this, and I've done my responsibility. The attorneys are here at every meeting, and when they hear something go offline or hear a reference to something that may have happened offline, for instance, Mr. X and Mr. Y went out together and looked into the possibility of selling advertising on GPS systems on the golf carts. That's a meeting between two officials of the district about something that might come for a vote. Or an email goes from one supervisor to another with a copy to the law firm. And it's something that may or may not be a violation of the Sunshine Law, but obviously it wouldn't have happened had the supervisors realized. But no comment from the law firm about, hey, you guys, you can't do this. Better not do this again. It's against the law. It's only if a specific question is asked about it or a lawsuit is filed. Is that the only time the law firm is responsible to step up and say, hey, guys, you're getting out of line? It's a question.
Is that the only time we're responsible? Absolutely not. In fact, I was here attending meetings when I heard Mr. McClure state that things were going off topic. So absolutely, we're aware of things that are going on.
Same thing with email correspondence between supervisors. You know, there's been a difference of understanding. I think it's even vague in the writing of the statute. And of course, nobody knows case law. Case law can change everything. But if you read the statute, I believe it says that upon any discussion about something that may come to the board for a vote. Right. That's what the limit was, or our understanding of what the limit was about things that you could have discussion on. But if a president of the board who's responsible for the agenda sends out an email that says, here's what we're going to be talking about next week to the other supervisors, is that a private meeting that wasn't open to the public between the president of the board and the other supervisors? Was he unable to present that information until the public was present at a publicly advertised meeting? That's what we're facing right now if you read the language of these state attorney charges. It's pretty deep. And I really think that the law firm this same law firm has been representing this district for, I don't know, 25 years or something like that. Nobody should be sitting on this board without an absolute clear understanding about what may or may not happen. And even when our labor attorney opined back in May about on behalf of the district, about the responsibilities in terms of the employee, he even demurred himself to McClure and Lobozo to render their advice about the Sunshine Law. And nothing came forth at that time about the Sunshine Law and what its effect would be on this particular situation that we're facing with this employee. Thank you.
Good morning. Laudum Carino, resident. I just have a question, and probably Bill Jackson here can answer it. When charges were brought against Severino for, wasn't it Sun?
I filed an ethics
It wasn't Sunshine breaking the Sunshine? Okay, so it was breaking the Sunshine Law.
Yes.
Okay, my question is, I don't recall at that time the state's attorney getting involved.
He didn't.
He didn't. So what makes this case different than that case when the state's attorney was not involved in it, and it was for the same charges?
My assumption is that the state's attorney was fed this information by a third party. That's what probably happened.
Well, who was the first party then to give them that information for this case? Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Doesn't make me wonder.
No, I'm thinking someone else, too. All right, thank you.
All right.
Bill Jackson, since this has been brought up, about the attorney's advice. I'm going to let you know what happened to me. For years, I was considered a pain in the butt. I had a commentary in a newsletter, and I wrote about this stuff. Every time we go in and something specific come up about how they were supposed to handle this, I stood up many times and said they're in violation of the ethics law. Well, the board turned around and looked at Mr. McClure, sitting right where you are. And they'd look at him and say, well, I don't think so. And I could hear the water running because that was me being flushed. After a number of times of this, 8 or 9 times, I warned Mr. McClure that if they did this again, I was going to write a complaint to the Ethics Commission. Well, I waited a little while and it popped up again. And they said they violated the law again, the ethics laws. I got up and said, well, that law, the complaint is going to be written. All of a sudden, Mr. McClure says, well, maybe we were wrong on this. Maybe we ought to do this and do that. I said, it's too late. You've been jerking me around now for years. I filed my complaint. It went to the Ethics Commission. They looked into it and found out I had a just complaint. So they went on with further investigation and found out that Mr. Severino and the board had 9 or 10 other charges brought against them. I didn't bring that, I only brought one. But the attorney is looking through this, found out there were 9 or 10 other changes. They came back, issued the statement, and at that time, Severino had the choice of just letting it go at that and taking whatever punishment he was in, or going to a board, some sort of board meeting. But all the time I sat there, all those years, and said that is a violation of the ethics of the Sunshine Law. The attorney would turn around and say, oh, no, I don't think so. And it was. If that's not bad advice, I don't know what is. Because then they got involved and they found out he was guilty of 9 or 10 other of those charges, same charges. So I think what they're all saying about the attorney we have here is a good comment. I don't think you can sit through these things, have one of these board members do something that's wrong and not advise them of it. Because that's what we hire you for. Make sure there's nothing illegal done. But that went on for years around here. Thank you.
I believe that Mr. Severino's problems, he had representation, I think it amounted to about 2,200 or 2,300, and he was found guilty of 11 ethics violations, and I don't think he ever was asked to repay that. I just, as a way of historical comment. Never was paid.
I think it would have had to come to the board to ask for reimbursement, and the board never asked for reimbursement.
No, they did, but he never got it back.
Wait a minute, may I correct that?
I can't recall.
Okay, I'll recall. Okay.
Right there.
I'll recall. Our attorney, Mr. McClure, at the time, came up to us and told us that we didn't have to pay for his attorney fees. Now, we had already paid for them. I mean, that's a hell of a note to all of a sudden say we don't have to pay for them after we let the horse out of the barn. Okay? There was a few people in here that was very upset because we shelled out all this money up front and didn't get paid. But there was a resolution that was passed. It wasn't passed, that was being presented. Okay? The resolution failed. And in that resolution, we were going to, in other words, in order to get our money back, we had to sue Mr. Severino. You know, we had to sue to get our money back. That's why I'm so vehement against, being giving the monies to anybody, a total amount without any limits. He was sued. And the resolution was for us to sue Mr. Severino. The resolution failed by a vote of 3-2. Mr. Guglielmi voted in favor of not for and against the resolution. Ms. Johnson voted against the resolution, and you, Dave Halbeck, was the third deciding vote on this. What gets me is I don't feel that I have to sue anybody to get my money back, and that's why I don't want to fork out any money in upfront to anybody.
Rusty, I don't believe that was a resolution to sue or get the money back. That was for representation, and I was the tiebreaker. The reason I was the tiebreaker is because he was a tiebreaker previously on the Mitchell situation, and he backed me 100%. Anybody on this board that some predator comes at him for some reason should be covered, period. It doesn't make any difference. You're not going to get somebody on this board that has limitations that are not protected. They would be an idiot. I'm an idiot for sitting here and going through all this stuff, but I'm not going to leave it in the 5th round of a 10-rounder, I'll guarantee you. And we need the support of the people, and we need the support of the board when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I understand what you said, Dave, but I also understand we don't have unlimited sources here. And I think something should have been done longer time ago as far as setting up a precedent, setting up a procedure. And I think you people, the supervisors, anybody that takes that position, has a responsibility to govern themselves and to know the Sunshine Law. And that's part of the game. That's part of what you deal for when you ran for this office. Okay? Now, as far as the Sunshine Law, I'm all for it. The only thing it lacks is teeth. Because I can tell you about South Florida and about the collusions and deals made in South Florida. They were rampant. And that's why this came about. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Costi. There's a website, you can find it very easily. It's called Online Sunshine. Online Sunshine will take you to the Florida state statutes, and the words are very clear of those statutes. It doesn't take you to case law. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the backlog of lawsuits that are going on in this country. Just because it's black and white in a statute doesn't necessarily mean it's so. But it gives you a good guideline, a good alert that if it says it in the statute, at least you got something to hang your hat on. The Sunshine Law with regard to this legal representation of public officials states that the legal body or the entity can pursue someone whose legal fees have been paid to get them back if they're judged guilty. That's the way it's written. The assumption is that you're going to be covered up front, and again, these insurance policies are written to cover that kind of a situation. And keep in mind, 4 out of the last 6 board members that sat up here ran without any competition. This district right now, as a result of what's going on today, is in danger of going lacking for anybody that will be willing to sit on that board if they're going to have to go up there with their hat in their hand and ask to be defended if somebody gets a wild hair that prompts them to go to the state's attorney and make some accusations. Or go to the newspaper and create a situation where a case is tried in the press, which is obviously taking place right now.
He's not here.
Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know. I know the one that has been writing lately is not here. But I've only seen one side of the story in the press. The other side of the story has been in the public realm, online, on the district website for months. Not one word of it has appeared in the press. Perhaps somebody should have delivered it to the editor's office at the press at the time that it was initially written and proposed. First time I saw the charges that were initially lodged against these guys was the Thursday before the meeting that it came before the board.
the day before the meeting, it appeared in Highlands Today. Thank you.
Good morning. Rex Bond, a resident of Sun and Lake. We've spent a lot of time this morning, folks, and I think most of it's been wasted. Everybody in here, if you're going to serve on the board, and some of you received a handbook, but the handbooks come out of Tallahassee and you can get them. All of this business we're talking about now, did any of you or anybody file this complaint with the commission in Tallahassee, with the Ethics Commission? There's a procedure to go by. And you can get that handbook. I've got one that's a little old and dog-eared now, but it still says who you filed with, and you're shaking your head. But there is a book that tells you how to do this. And I think we've messed around this morning and people in the neighborhood talking about something that may never happen. And win or lose. It says this in that little book in some cases that I know about. You can lose and still get your money back. But that's not the purpose of the commission. In other words, be right. Have a good case when you file it with the Ethics Commission. And then they get the state's attorney. He's the only person, I believe, according to the statute, that can prosecute if someone has filed enough information and all that bit. So I think we've circumvented the situation a little bit, and I'm not going to take any more of your time. But we've got some areas that need to be cleaned up, and you have some capable people, I'm sure, that if you needed some help, that they would be glad to help you. Thank you.
Back to the board. Okay. Any more board comment? Oh, I got to wait for Rick to come back.
We have the motion after it's done.
By the way, I remind the board, you can't whisper among each other. This is a public meeting.
I was just asking him whether or not we're to the resolution itself. Okay?
Still, it's all got to be done. So I apologize to you.
No, that's okay. You're right. You're 100% right.
Guess what?
It's nice and quiet.
Yeah.
Well, waiting for you.
Good.
All right, back to the board. All righty, we're voting on Resolution 2015-925-38, just to remind everybody. Call the roll.
As amended.
As amended.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Hulbert?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. Need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-925-36, a resolution of Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to approve the hiring of legal counsel for Supervisor McCullough in response to an investigation initiated by the State Attorney's Office. I've already filed my Form 8B with Ms. Lee earlier this week.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
I need a second.
Wait a minute. Don't we want to eliminate that?
I don't have a problem with it. We don't need to go
Okay.
through that crap again.
Well, pardon us.
I'll make a motion that paragraph 4 gets removed from this resolution.
I'll second it.
Board comment? Public comment?
Wait a minute.
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
Do you have any documentation as to the lawyer or to the fees?
I do. Not with me, no, I do not.
Well, I think all the resolutions that were put before included an agreement with a legal attorney and also a list of charges.
Well, at the time the resolution was written, I did not have legal counsel. I can tell you, I do have legal counsel. His name is David Carmichael out of Bartow, and his fee is $1,500. Flat fee. Flat fee.
Flat fee.
David, is that the resolution can be passed without any documentation?
As stated by President McCullough, this draft resolution was prepared before any charges were filed, same as yours was back to the originally, so it does not fall under 09-10, so none of that is necessary.
Okay.
Any more board comment? Public comment?
Bill Jackson, there's not many times when you can get up here with a smile on your face and realize a situation's been taken care of. To me, this falls under the category that chickens are coming home to roost. And no one was interested in that when it wasn't their chicken. It was only when it was someone else's chicken that they fought it. But I would recommend, until this documentation is done, that we put this off for a month or so. And then we'll do something about it later. Maybe more chickens will come to the roost by then.
Back to the board. Board comment? Call the roll.
Right now, you're just voting on the motion to amend the resolution by striking
Yes.
or sentence 4. Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Hulbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Alrighty, now we need board comment on the actual resolution
As amended.
as amended.
As amended.
Public comment? Back to the board. Call the roll. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'm sorry.
I just point out for the record that when last meeting, when Supervisor Halbig had the same resolution in front of us, he was put through a line of questioning that was, in my opinion, very inappropriate. And we're not doing that on this resolution, but I just want that for the record, saying that that had happened. Thank you.
Call the roll.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Hulbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-925-37, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to award the bid.
Point of order.
What's that?
Point of order.
Yeah?
No supervisor is excused from voting on any subject under the laws of the state of Florida, including landowner-elected supervisors. Landowner-elected supervisors file their Form 8 and then do vote. My point of order is that Mr. McCullough did not vote on this past resolution and is required to by the Florida statutes. Thank you.
Is that correct, David?
I'll have to review that.
I think the Form 8B says it. If you read the Form 8B, I'm pretty sure it says it. I have to, since I'm an elected, but if it's a landowner, he can vote, I think.
Do you want to address that now?
Yeah, we should.
President McCullough, you're an appointed officer, is that correct? appointed officers, although you must abstain from voting in the situation described above, you otherwise may participate in these matters, period.
Well,
I'll go further.
appointed is not correct. He was elected under a different.
As a landowner.
Elected officer, in addition to abstaining from voting in the situation described above, you must disclose a conflict. I'll do a further review and provide a memorandum.
Yeah, well, we have this strange dichotomy about voting, and we have two landowner representatives, which is carryover from the original voting situation, and we have three popularly elected. I think Mr. Costy's point was that this is different from the conditions of popular elected or regularly elected officials. So we do need some clarification on that.
I'll do a review and provide a memorandum.
Point of information. This is exactly what I meant when I said we need to make some changes with the supervisors. Thank you.
All righty. I don't think I finished reading resolution, so we'll do it again. Resolution, I need a motion to approve Resolution 2015-925-37, a resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to award the bid on the security camera upgrade and installation of project RFP 15-08 to the Alarm Company of Okeechobee Incorporated.
Motion approved.
Second.
Good morning, Tennille Drury-Smith, Community Services Director. At this time, we'd like to recommend awarding the Alarm Company of Okeechobee the security camera upgrade and installation for the Recreation Complex and Racket Club. We received 3 bids. Sebring Computers for $29,405.85, Alarm Company of Okeechobee for $29,500, and Skynet Security Integrations for $79,357. We recommend the Alarm Company be awarded due to the fact, even though they were not the lowest bidder, they had the most complete packet as far as information we required in the RFP, including examples of the cameras and warranty information.
Okay. I'm certainly no expert in this area, so it's up to you. Any other board comment?
I did a little bit of quizzing on it from a outside source, and excuse me, the only information I got was the cameras are very good cameras. I think the reason that the Skynet security was so expensive, I think it was a hardwired thing, and this other is basically over the internet. But I'm like you, I don't have enough information on it to know anything about it. The equipment looks good. That's all I can say.
Teddy, are you satisfied we're going to get a substantial improvement in clarity of image?
Yes,
On this
absolutely.
one?
These are high definition cameras.
These are just to replace the existing ones in the same location?
Replace existing, adding a few more, such as to the island, because we don't have one pointing out there right now. And also adding a whole system to the Racket Club, which we do not currently have.
I guess that's it for the board. Public comment? Back to the board. Call the roll.
Supervisor Holbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Haubig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. Alrighty, Gator, you want to take the lead on the next part, maintenance facility discussion?
All right. Can we do it from here, or do you want me to get it?
You can,
whichever one.
whatever way you want to do it.
I got my paper spread out a little bit better here, so I have my calculator if I need it. This is just kind of a discussion item for the record, Gator Howerton, Polston Engineering. This is continuation on our past discussions about the maintenance facility that we've been discussing quite in depth. Some of the last meetings, there were some I guess, uncertainty about what we wanted to do with the interior of the building. So I have hired a draftsman more in tune, more appropriate for doing that kind of stuff, better than myself, more qualified. And he has come up with the plan. I worked with the general manager, and we have also worked with Mr. Bell and several other members of the staff, the maintenance staff and whatnot. Discussed the layout. I believe in front of you should have a copy of the interior on the building, what we're proposing. We have downsized it some to try to minimize the amount there. Try to minimize the area on there, but also try to make it efficient and something that will carry us on in the future with hopefully without any modifications or significant modifications. One of the things we've done, we've reduced the size of the director or the public works director office, increased and then moved over and had the same size for the golf superintendent. We have also kind of laid out the interior for the other 4 offices there for the operations, road department, utilities, and the mechanic. We've also kind of trying to work those out where they're more of a fluid type of a wall. We may even have partitions on some of the other walls. Have those where they're non-load bearing walls inside there where we can modify those in a future date if we need to. We have also kind of combined the break room, training room, conference room, kind of combine that to where it's one room that can be used for both for their training and for their meetings, for staff meetings that they need out there. It can also, and the same tables can be used for the lunch break room, such as that. We've moved all the bathrooms, got them all consistent over on one side, reduced the men's room, a few stalls, and also reduced the women's restroom to one. We also have a unisex room, so we actually have 2 restrooms available for women. One of them also has a shower in it in the unisex, and which we also had a shower on the previous versions as well. Part of it that we're still discussing is whether or not the need for storage on the upstairs, if we really even need that at this point. We're probably going to have some above it. We're going to have some space available, no doubt, above that. It may not be the full size of it that probably used, and we're still discussing that somewhat, but things like Christmas decorations, just some of those typical attic things that we normally have in all of our own houses would be some of the same type of things. It's kind of not used very often, but the tools and the heavy equipment will all still be stored on the floor level, and we have a little more room here for storage on the ground level with this layout on the outside of the finished out area. The site plan is pretty much the same one that you approved. There were a few modifications that you had requested, and I've made those changes, so I just included that so you see what we're still going with this time. We have since acquired lot 11, is now in the district's ownership. So the only lot of that strip through there is lot 10. Is the only one of those lots that we do not own. And so you now have that.
Hey, Gator?
Yes, sir?
On your map, where is the Century building on this? Is it on lot 13 or 14?
It is on lot 14.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. And as we have the entrance coming in off to the Columbus Boulevard to come across from the pond over there like you had requested the last meeting. There was a slight increase on cost because of the asphalt, just moving the driveway over from coming in lot 9 or 10. We're going around there, so we have that extra asphalt there that I've added to it and revised the budget a little bit here and there and tweaked it, fine-tuned it some. Yes, sir, Mr. Miller.
Peter, several weeks ago, I had asked you to take a look at the design with an idea of perhaps we can save some costs in terms of more efficiency, reduction, so forth. And you've indicated several examples of what you've done to address that issue, but I don't see any change in our bottom line.
On the estimate that I provided with you, I did not change the interior finishing quantity number. I've still got that set at 3,000 square feet, but the current layout here is 2,625. So that would actually result in about a $16,000 reduction just at that estimated rate. I'm really hoping that unit cost that I have there is exaggerated or is a high estimate. But there again, I'm not an expert on finishing out buildings, and so I'm relying on others on that. So I kind of take their numbers and I've added a little bit for my own safety factor because I certainly don't want to have to come back to you and try to explain why I underestimated something. And so hopefully that'll be a reduction down about 16. That'll get us down below the 1.4. There were a couple other items that we've done to reduce some things. We're also looking at, and by not having as much storage on the upstairs, that's going to reduce the strength requirements for the trusses over top of this finished area. And that'll reduce the cost some. That's one of the things we were looking at. And reducing the height of the building overall will reduce the cost some. I have not reflected that in here because I do not have hard numbers yet because we really don't know that until we bid it. But we're doing several things trying to reduce the cost on the final cost, but on the estimate, I don't have a whole lot of it. I hate to start cutting the estimate back too much at this point until we have some actual hard numbers from an actual contractor who's interested in working on the project, who bids it.
Got a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
On the original plan, you showed a road exit or entrance on the north side.
Correct.
Through Lot 3. And on
Correct,
this
yes,
one,
sir.
you're not showing that? Is
Right.
it?
That was the direction of the board. That was.
You didn't want it? We told
Yeah.
you not to take that road out?
Right, you told me to remove that road from that.
What would be the reason for that? Anybody tell me?
I don't remember telling him not to do it, but
It's cost.
Cost?
Cost.
Yeah, but to me,
There's still an exit road there. You can still get out, on that road, can't you?
Not to Woods and Irons, no, sir. We do not have, I'm not showing anything developed. I mean, you still have the access to it. You still own the lot there. But I do not, I removed that driveway that we had shown there. I removed it per y'all's direction.
Well, it seems to me it'd be more efficient for the golf equipment to go out there than to, especially if they're going to Turtle or
We had recommended that before. It would be an easier access road for the
Right.
golf. Yes, sir.
Oh, it's on the side here.
Yeah.
You put it on the west side?
Yeah, we do still have one going out into the, I guess, the deer run
Right.
course there on the west side of the project. There is still for the smaller golf equipment. But, right, I mean, if you want me to add one back on Lot 3, if
That's
that's
fine. I didn't see the one on the west side there.
Right, yes, sir, we still have that one over
The
there.
other issue that I think Mr. Halbig brought up earlier was the size of the tractor barn. He thought it wasn't big enough. Have you guys discussed that at all, or decided this is adequate, or whatever?
Well, I'll make a statement, a general statement. Anyone who has a barn will back me up on this. They're never big enough. They're never going to be big enough. I built a 30 by 50, and I thought it was a massive room or shop for mine, and now I can hardly walk through it because it's so full of just stuff. But so yeah, if we wanted to increase that size, it certainly is not. We'll use the space if we increase it. We will definitely use the space. I put a 40 by 60 on there because it's just kind of a cost effective. It's a somewhat small barn there, but we could certainly use larger if you're willing to allow us to do that. That would be great. I'm sure we would use it.
I think when I brought it up, I thought maybe if we increased that the tractor barn size, we could decrease the size of the other building so we wouldn't have to store
Right,
our
as much in the
equipment
main
inside, and that didn't happen, so it.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's certainly something you can do if that's what you want to do. If you'd rather have more open area than closed, it's up to you.
So you're basically saying with the barn and the tractor barn, with the building and the tractor barn, every piece of equipment will be covered?
That's our intention, yes, sir. I mean, that's a pretty good amount of space there. We're planning on having for each department, we'll have the roads and public works, have the utility department, and then the golf and then there'll also be a lot of space for maintenance.
Gator, you have a line item building interior finishing. Does that include furniture? Is that furnishing or anything you put in there as far as tables, chairs, etc.?
That is my intention, is for that to include that, yes, sir.
So that will be covered?
That's my intent, yes, sir. That's why
The other question I got is on the right side of your drawing here, looks like you reduced the office space by 400 feet, roughly 400 square feet. And you put stairs in there. If you're going to use that area for small storage, like having racking and small part storage, why wouldn't you move the stairs around to the top side of that drawing and create more storage and And to me, the stairs wouldn't affect anything on that.
Right, we will. Actually, that is a change that would be from here. We would do that, is put up, because we're only talking about using the center half for storage upstairs for light duty storage, and only the center half, so it would be moved around there behind the conference training room, somewhere in that area.
So you'd move the water heater and the sink, the laundry tub, whatever you want to call it, and the stairs around the corner then? Is that
At least the stairs, the water heater and sink might stay there, or at least near where they're at, because of all the plumbing fixtures are all right there in one area. But, and that would be and everyone come in and go into the restroom, we want them to wash their hands. If they got grease and oil and stuff on their hands, we want them to wash their hands before they come into the facility.
Where does the golf course deal with their tree trimmings and all that stuff that they bring back to the maintenance area? What do they do with it?
That's an operational thing that I'd have to discuss with Mr. Bell a little more on that, but we have discussed that somewhat in the past of trying to, I believe, mulch them up in a more along as we go kind of a thing, but that would be an operational question I'd have for him. But we still do have some of that area where they're currently being stored that you could still put them over there for a little while, but hopefully I'm thinking that we're going to start mulching them. I don't hate to speak for him, but I'm trying to mulch them as we go and not have quite as large of a pile built up.
So you show a dumpster on here, so you'd mulch it and throw it in the dumpster? Is that kind of the plan there? Is that what you're thinking?
That could be, if that's, yeah, we want to have, we do need a dumpster
I know there's no plans to take that mulch back onto the course, what I've been told. We're not, it's counterproductive to do that.
Right, that's an operational thing that I'm not, couldn't speak.
Gator, you show this plan view, no elevations. How about the work bays? Is that drive-through, or is it just entrance from one side?
No, it'd be doors on both sides, on the north and south side. It'd be about 7 doors across there, large roll-up doors.
Okay, I was talking to, read the article about the county, and they were talking about they were talking about their fire stations. And they said it's a lot more cost-effective to pull in and back out rather than put big doors on both ends. I mean, there was considerable cost savings there. I don't know how many we've got.
Yeah, the doors cost some money on that, but and we could do that. We could reduce. I don't want to reduce all of them because that's just where you get your ventilation going through there. And these buildings, they turn into an oven. These are metal buildings. I mean, they're fine if you open those doors up, you can get a breeze blowing through them. But if you keep those doors closed, they turn into an oven in the summertime.
So how many bays you got?
It'd be 7 bays going across. It's 140. The maintenance area would be 20, or it'd be 7 20-foot wide bays.
7 doors?
Right. Yes, sir.
And 7 doors on the other side as well?
Right. So it'd be 14 total doors if we done the same thing. That's what the Avon Park has now. Now we could reduce that on some of them if you would like. We can reduce that. That's fine. Some of them need to be pulled all the way through for the large, because we can't turn tractors around, things like that in there. So some of the larger tractors, we would like to pull those through. I believe you'd want to do that. But the golf equipment, some of the smaller things, I think they could turn around. They'll have plenty of room to turn around or come back out and back out. So that stuff, there's some we could reduce the number of doors, maybe only have 4 or 5 doors on the north side and still have the 7 on the south, or however you would wish to do on that.
Ventilation's important.
Where do we move the fuel tanks to?
Those are shown in the chemical wash fuel area over on lot 12, towards the entrance.
Okay, that's where they move to?
Right, the function.
I thought that was just the wash-off area.
Right, it's a combination of chemical. There'll be a chemical storage room there where they can also fill up their chemicals and water and whatnot, and have a wash area to wash the equipment and fuel it up while they're right there. So it's kind of a catch-all as you're coming in to the idea is that you're driving in, we want it to be on that right side, so you just pull right in there, wash off your mower or whatever, fuel it up, and do whatever you need to do so it's ready to go for the next day before it even goes into the yard.
Okay.
Okay. I was just kind of giving you an update on it, so if you have any other questions, I'll turn it over.
Are you ready to go to bid or what?
No, sir, not yet. We're still working on it.
So you'll write up the specs and then bring that back to us, or?
Yes, sir.
Is that the way it'll work?
Let me ask a question. I'm back to the doors. If you got doors on both ends of this thing, where do you store the things you use your tools? I mean, you got to have tool storage in this thing somewhere. If you got doors on both sides and offices on the other end, you don't have any room for any of that.
We're still working out some of the details of how we're going to do on that area, but my idea on that would, keep in mind they're 20 feet wide. Each one of these bays are 20 feet wide, essentially. So, and you don't have to use all the doors. They can, even though the doors roll up, they might keep some of that stuff stored in there and not drive through. It may just be a ventilation thing. But also, I'm thinking we're going to have some divisions, kind of like a partition somewhat within there. Then we'll have some shelving and storage and all for, because we're going to have several different departments. They don't need to mix up their tools. They have their own tools and equipment, parts, things like that. There'll be plenty enough room in there that we'll have a division between, so that the golf operation is not using the maintenance guys and the maintenance not using the golf's equipment and things like that. We'll kind of have them separated out.
Okay, well, you get down to the detail in this thing, I suggest you talk to David and talk to the roads and drainage guys and see how they would like to see this thing laid out in regards to putting their tools and how many doors they want on each side and so on and so forth.
Right, we have been.
There's a heck of a difference in cost, because these things are, I mean, they're tall. They're as tall as a building, just about. I remember the Avon Park.
Right,
They're
you want them as
really
tall.
expensive.
Right, you want to get them as high as you can so you can get that, because the hot air rises, the hot air goes to the top, so as tall as they are, at least have some of them. Not all of them have to be that tall. And that's one thing we were looking at doing too, is some of them would only be like a 12-foot high door, and some of them may be a 14, or depending on the height of the building. So we're trying to bring that building height down. But not all of them would have to be full height, because the golf equipment is not very tall. But the backhoes and things like that, they need a tall door to come in and out.
All righty.
Just to be clear, does the board want to see the specifications before the bid goes out? Do you want us to bring it back to you? Or do you want to instruct Gator to work with staff and work up the specifications? It could be 60 to 90 days before we work up those specs for the bid.
Yeah, I think Gator and the staff know better what they really need.
Okay.
And I mean, he heard what we were saying, so as long as you don't forget it.
Yeah.
Well, if there's any major change, sure,
Then
we'd like to see.
of course we would, yes, of course, but,
If not, I agree that they should go ahead.
okay, we'll move forward then.
Next on the agenda is add-on items.
None?
Petitions and communications.
None?
Staff reports.
Oh, I got a question on security report. I read on the security report where there was a incident where this lady, where somebody said this lady's hose were running in her fountain for days on end, several days, and they finally went to the house. They had to basically break in and found the lady incapacitated, and they took care of it. My first thought was, take that date and have somebody go back and look at the water consumption. Remember, this thing's supposed to red flag a residential unit or a commercial unit if the capacity, if the usage is very high, which would flag that, and normally the utility people go right away to try to find that out. Maybe that's not happening. I mean, that was one of the good things about this new system. So it might not be a bad idea to look at the date of that call and have them go back in the system and see if that was missed.
Well, we can do that, and there's a certain gallon threshold on a per-day usage that'll flag that, but the woman has since passed away in the last 3 days. I was served yesterday, so.
Yeah.
Tanya, when are we going to see the code enforcement presentation?
I'm not sure if it's going to be at the next meeting or not. I don't even have a consultant yet. We've already inquired with the organization that Mr. Hurley and Mr. Brumfield are part of, and we are looking for a consultant, and we have not been provided one as yet. So I don't know that Mr. Hurley is out of town, and I don't know that we'll be at the next meeting. Still waiting.
Okay.
I have in front of you, and I also emailed out to all the supervisors a couple of options and discussion on what to do about Racket Club memberships now that we're approaching the completion of the project. We laid out 3 options. The first option is a 5-month extension on current expiration dates. Or the second option would be 5 months to everyone effective upon the opening of the courts. And then third option is to do nothing.
Well, my feeling on that is we're the ones that messed up this whole project. And I don't think that any of the members of our racket club should be penalized financially in any way because of the fact that we're still waiting, to do this, to finish this thing off. So with that in mind, what would you recommend?
Staff recommends option B would be, we believe would be the best for the situation.
That would be the fairest, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm good with that.
That's better than A then?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I think we did an extension for the driving range, and it would be kind of foolish of us not to do the same here. So,
Okay.
Any other comment? Everybody's cool with it?
Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to give a quick Public Works presentation.
That's fine.
No.
Can I go to the podium so I can see
No.
the screen? This is a Public Works update. And what we've done is we've taken Tanya Kennedy, General Manager. I'd like to provide the public with a Public Works update today. And what we've done is we've taken pictures of the different departments and the work they've done over the last 2 or 3 months. The first slide, first set of pictures, is a blow-off repair on Granada and Cortez. The blow-off valve that was installed over 30 years ago went bad, and the utility department dug down to the main line and eliminated the blow-off and capped the main. So those are a set of pictures of the staff doing that repair. Nope. The next slide, we have an Edgewater lift station pump repair. And the pump at this lift station was clogged, and the utility department had to enter the lift station and remove the grease and the rags from around the pump and the electrical wiring. The next slide, this is our VAC-Con trailer. And this trailer has been proven to be a valuable asset to the district. And it's an asset for exercising valves that are seized and unable to be opened or shut off by hand. The pictures show that the staff are exercising these valves. And there's 2 pictures there for you. The next slide, the district staff, we've done more water and sewer taps, I think, in the recent 1 year than we have in the last probably 4 years. So when there's new construction, it's required that the district tap in to establish new service, and that's a picture of staff doing a tap. On the next slide, we've had a poly line break in the middle of the road in Tanglewood, and the utility crew had to repair the line break, and the whole road was paved after the repair. So you can see pictures of the water and how high it is for that line break. And that was inside Tanglewood.
When you say poly, is that like a water line, or what kind of line is it? What water goes through that line?
It's a water line, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. The next slide, each year the contact chambers at the wastewater plant must be pressure washed, and these pictures are from the Unit 4 plant, so you can see the employee down in that section of the plant doing some pressure washing. Mildew and other factors there. The next slide is a stub out repair on Catalina, and the utility department was called out to fix an old stub out into the driveways that were never capped. And during this work, they also located a couple of manholes for a private sewer that was not known. Moving on to Roads Department. They've been busy this summer doing some patchwork and some asphalt work. The pictures that you see there are in Unit 11, I believe. I can't see the, yeah, there. The next slide shows catch basin cleaning, and they have been working cleaning out residential catch basins, and this is a picture of staff on Torrega Street cleaning that area. The district is now fully resumed its mosquito spraying program on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And we do have a new sprayer. Our old sprayer is in repair, and we'd like to keep that as a backup because there was about a 3-week process where we did not have any spraying due to mechanical failure of the mosquito sprayer. And moving on, the district has 2 manholes on Villa Bella and 1 on Mercado, and these manholes have failed due to the deteriorating concrete and due to corrosive gases emitting from the pump line, emptying into the manholes. Complete failure could result in a hole in this road and pose a serious hazard. And there's a few pictures of that manhole. Does the board have any questions? I just wanted to provide you an update of what our staff has been doing this summer. So
Yeah, I have one,
Sure.
Tanya. How are we dealing with the current vacancy in Public Works? You are doing that with what? Department heads and sub-department heads? How is that?
department heads, myself, and Mr. Howerton have taken over those responsibilities. It's been a combination effort of all the staff.
So Poston is involved in the administration, supervision?
Not in the supervision, just in case there's a question that the road staff has, or if it's an emergency situation that they need to call him in, they can do so, but they also involve me as well.
So essentially, we haven't missed a beat, have we?
Not yet.
Sounds like we saved some money for a while.
Trade-off, we get more consultant costs. Yes.
Mr. Hurley's not here,
No.
so we don't have code enforcement. What about golf? Anything from golf?
Mr. Jim, did you want to give a quick hello?
Jim Kurtzborn, General Manager from Billy Casper Golf. Just wanted to say that I'm excited to be here and have the opportunity. Been working with David Bell on our conditioning and looking forward to a great season on the golf course. And beyond that, met with Mr. Norcross to get our golf play committee to high efficiency this year. And beyond that, just looking forward to being part of a great organization.
Well, thank you. Welcome. And you're off to a great start already.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
yeah. Mr. Shoemaker, you're up.
Well, there's some minor movement in the Severino case. Mr. Wright's deposition which was scheduled, apparently was canceled at the last minute. I don't have any details on why that occurred, but I did see the notice of cancellation. There have been depositions of defendants, not defendants, but several of the members of the plaintiff group that are scheduled for November 13th and November 6th, and the district, through the attorney that's handling the litigation part, has filed a motion to compel regarding some of the discovery documents that have not been provided by plaintiff. Other than that, everything else is pretty much standard from the last report, including the foreclosure report. No real news.
David, unless my colleagues have any objection, I would like the next meeting to bring back an amended resolution for my legal counsel that strikes
Absolutely.
Item 4. Thank you.
David, I got a couple of questions that I need to ask, and one of them is about public records request. You know, I put in a public records request on August the 3rd for email addresses that where district business was being conducted with a former employee that has 4 email addresses, and that was on the 3rd of August. And so far, I've received only one, which was dumped out of the district computer. I've received none of the others yet. They're pretty much refused to do it. I thought there was a timeline, and I read somewhere in this sunshine law where there was a 10 to 20 day window for some of that to happen. And I give the request to a custodian of public records at the district office. What can I do, or what can the district do to try to provide those correspondence?
Well, as far as a record custodian, I think that in some of the email communications we had, I detailed that when a district employee creates a record, they are the creator of the record is the custodian of that record, because currently the district does not have a way or a procedure for bringing in public records that have been created that are not part of the district system. Obviously, the district has the ability to produce records that are created through the district's computer system, but these, like text messages taking place over personal cell phones or personal email addresses, we don't have a procedure in place yet to instructing the employee to bring that record into the district for safekeeping. I've had conversations with Tanya about creating such a procedure, and so I think that's probably the first step in making that happen, making those records more available.
Well, on the request that we got from a law firm and then the state's attorney, we had to provide our correspondence within a pretty small window of time. But how come we have to do that and somebody else does not?
Well, I mean, I think that also in that same email that I sent you, it talked about there is no specific set time. It's supposed to be reasonable. Now, I think that if are we talking about a month, if I'm correct, since this request has been made?
August the 3rd, this is end of September almost, it's almost 2 months.
Okay, so that obviously that could be deemed unreasonable, but.
And I did read 10 to 20 days in the, I forget what website it was. It was a reporters something or another from the Florida Law. Can't remember exactly what website that was, but that's what it said, 10 to 20 days. So, and I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the district has any recourse, or I independently have a recourse. So I'd like for you to
do some research on that. Yes, sir.
I also I have another question, and I don't know, we probably can't talk about it. It's maybe can, maybe can't. But in a couple of the charges against some of the supervisors, there was one charge about trying to compile a list of potential candidates to run the landowner meeting. Does the landowner meeting fall outside of the sunshine law as it relates to the Board of Supervisors? Because when the landowner meeting starts, we stop the meeting. The Board of Supervisors got nothing to do with the meeting. They go back to the audience and sit down. The landowner meeting is held, and then after the landowner meeting is over, we come back and reconvene the normal meeting. So how does that relate? I mean, to me, that's it's sort of awfully vague about somebody trying to just put together a who do you think can run this meeting conversation when the Board of Supervisors don't act on it at a meeting at all. It's all done outside of the regular meeting, and is all done at a landowner meeting, because the nominations are done at the landowner meeting after the meeting's closed. Supervisors have nothing to do about it, nothing to say about it. So it sounds to me like that charge might be something that's outside of what they're saying is a sunshine law violation as far as the supervisors are concerned.
And I'm happy to take a look at that. I know the landowner meeting is mentioned in the municipal code of ordinances that created through the district's charter. I don't know how that specifically relates off the top of my head to the supervisors and their role, if any, in that landowner meeting. So I'll find out about that.
Okay. General Manager's report.
I have an update on the cart path project for Deer Run. All of the work has been performed, but review has been done, and there's still some minor finishes that needs to be touched up by Harstein Golf before the final payment is made. So I expect all this work to be finished by September 30th. The tennis and pickleball courts, we do have color, so that's a start. They have been, putting some color on some of the tennis courts and pickleball courts, not quite yet, but I don't anticipate the work to be finished within 7 days, but, I'm looking, he won't give me an exact date because we still have, it's all weather permitting. I mean, that's where we are, so we're seeing progress. Bassett Electronics attended the September 11th meeting.
Tanya, excuse me.
Yes.
Do we have any kind of a time frame for finishing this thing, tennis courts?
He's been out there every day that weather has allowed him to be out there. Is that correct?
Well, is he the Welch guy?
This is a Welch subcontractor, I believe.
Finisher, the guy putting
Yes, the
the
finisher.
painting down. Reason I was kind of late coming, I was meeting with him this morning, but he still thinks he can be done with them by the end of the month. But I'm still, she and I are kind of looking at it, go, you got a long ways to go, but the paint does go down very fast, and they were putting on the second coat, or on a second thing of blue this morning, and had about half of it done while we were discussing it. It does go down fast. They put it in with about a 2-foot wide squeegee, and I mean, they move with it pretty quickly. He's still got a little bit of some polishing to do on some of the patching and things like that they're doing for smoothing things out. And then he says he's going to start putting the primer coat on that. So it's conceivable if he has the right weather, has consistent weather that he needs to do it, he could be done within the next week or so. But it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. I mean, if we have a couple of rainy days, it might just delay him a few days past that. But we're getting close into that week window.
Can we all say a small prayer for that?
Yes, sir.
Has anybody advised Billy Casper regarding the landscaping surrounding the court?
I have.
Because that's fallen into a rather sad situation.
David Bell and I spoke about it on Wednesday, yes, sir. So as soon as Welch is finished moving some of those materials out of the way, because there's a lot of canisters and materials set up in the middle, then David Bell we're going to replace the sod and do all the weeding and get it nice.
Okay, thank you.
Gator and I have studied the Weather Channel every day for the last few days. Bassett Electronics attended the September 11th meeting to assess our sound issues, and they did recommend to reposition the speakers that are attached to the roof here. And we did reposition 3 of those, and one of them was not able to reposition, and we need to order a new housing unit for those. We do know that when events are held in here that those speakers do get moved, and it looks like one of those housing units was broken. So based on those recommendations of Bassett, it looks like so far that the sound system sounds pretty good today. They also did some other more costly recommendations, but we tried this first. We have ordered 2 street lights on San Lorenzo, and we've ordered 4 street lights around the tennis courts. And Mike Hurley and I will be working together to determine additional street lights in the district. Just some financial updates. I'd like to give a better financial update once the fiscal year is closed, but the district has received interest earnings in the current year of $58,000, and that's through August 31st. Our total budget was only $50,000, so we've already met our budget as far as investment income. And again, our interest rates are only ranging from 0.19% all the way up to 1.8% for the 60-month CDs. Assessment collections will be short compared to the budget by about $140,000 for this fiscal year. We had hoped to make up the difference from last year, but last year we did meet budget due to collecting 5 years' worth of assessments for the delinquent Quality Inn. When that sold, we were able to meet our budget last year. And lastly, we do have 12 new water and sewer connections here in the district in the last 11 months. So we are seeing some new construction and noticing I know our winter residents are coming back now, so I welcome everybody back to the district.
Well, as our financial director for years, would you say, which I believe, will you say that the district is in a very sound financial situation at the present time?
Absolutely. Yes, we are a district that we're able to pay cash for our facilities, and we have no debt at this time. So,
and even with the movement from the URIF fund, our reserves are way more than state requirements.
We could operate 14 months without any revenue. I mean, that's a
well, it's important we not lose sight of that issue because it's an ongoing concern, both residents and the board. So, Kurt, I have a couple more questions.
Before you go on a different subject, I just want to ask about the budget. I know for your assessments for this year, the same as, or I should say for the upcoming year, same as this year. So the fact that you're coming up short this year, are you concerned about hitting your number next year?
I am concerned, but I'm hopeful with the economy turnaround and being more aggressive from our collection side that we can meet that budget. Okay. I truly hope that we can, yes.
Tanya, we sort of put this purchasing procedures and protocols off to the side. We need to get back and address that issue. We've got procedures. We've also got accountability from the standpoint of signatures and so forth. Where do we stand on that?
We're working on that internally as we speak. Yeah, we're not quite ready to bring that back to the board, but we're working on revisions for our purchasing.
Okay. And another area I don't want you to lose sight of was this concern on the speeding on Ponce. And I don't know how you're addressing that, but that's been an ongoing sore point for people in that area. And do you have any ideas yet?
Not yet, but I need to make some phone calls regarding that area.
Okay, the last point I had was when I take it we're not going to mess with the recycle bins on the basis that the county is going to address that in February, is that correct?
I was going to talk to you about that, but I'd like not to move those recycle bins because of the article in the last couple of weeks. So we're hopeful that the county will implement that program by February.
Do we have any kind of a confident time frame for that?
Just based on what was in the paper, they said February. So that's I can call the county and verify that again, but we're hopeful they will implement that program soon.
And that'll be out of our hair at that time.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Mike Hurley came up with a very good idea about using our property that we acquired in Unit 6 and 7, I believe, that we might want to address the trailer parking problem throughout the district by creating a lockup where people can store these type of vehicles and also maybe RVs and so forth. Are you working on that?
We're working on discussing that, but I do know that there is also a private owner that is interested in doing that as well and has been looking into it.
Using our property?
No, their property. Their own property. This is not a Sun and Lake owned property. So But we're going to be discussing that in the next couple weeks.
Okay, you got a lot on your plate.
I do.
Tanya, there was a mention about falling short on revenue. Have you done a roll-up, or can you, in your own mind, on the expense side of the ledger and where we're going to be on that, based on, because we're getting real close to the end of the year?
Can I provide you an update at the next meeting on where we are? I know in the
Okay.
utility fund, we definitely will be adding to our fund balance. We haven't had the type of repairs and work in the utility fund.
Okay.
But I do know that.
All right.
Okay.
Unfinished business?
None,
New business?
none,
Committee reports?
none.
Public comment?
I got a question.
Go ahead. Just a second. Go ahead, Rick.
Go ahead.
Bill Jackson, I would like to take a few minutes and thank Mr. Hurley and his staff. We had a real problem over where I lived. There was a rental home over there, a bunch of young people. There must have been 8 or 9 cars in the driveway all the time. And we didn't, that was one thing. But then they brought in 4-wheel drive vehicles, and they thought Sun and Lake streets were for the Grand Prix. And when I put a stop to it coming out on my street where I am, they went through the backyard and through other people's yards. And you talked to them and you talked to them and couldn't get anything done. Finally, Mr. Hurley contacted the owner of the building. And after a while, they had all these people in there, they had 2 leases on one place, one guy in there. Finally, he contacted them, and now the place is empty, they're redoing it, and they're gonna sell it. So I think a hurrah is due for him, and I appreciate that fact because we could hear those things running all night. One other thing, I took a quick look at that map up there, the drawing up there for the new not recreation, but the new maintenance facility. And just from a distance, I can see where you're going to create a big problem. Why do we have to have a conference room up there with 2 big tables? Now, if I've been responsible for employees before. You give them a chance to come in and gather. They'll sit around forever. And you'll be creating a problem up there where you want people outside. You want them outside doing their job, not sitting in some room up there and drinking Coke and talking to each other. If you open that conference room up like that, that's what you're going to have. Now, if they have to have a conference, what's this? We have a room here. All we have to do is put down a few chairs and they can come in and hold their meeting. But we're going to use that much space in a building for our conference room and training. I don't think it's a good idea. We need to close that down and use that space for something else. Got big tables in there you're going to have to buy and all that stuff. It's not a good idea. Because one of the biggest responsibilities any boss has is getting the people out to work. And if you let them start sitting down talking to all their buddies, it'd be 9, 10 o'clock before you get any of them out of there. So I would just recommend that you take another look at that. Because this is not a conference center. This is a repair facility. And when the one I saw in Avon Park, I don't remember all those doors in Avon Park. I thought there was one at the beginning and the end. And about putting stalls in there. I think you put stalls in there, you're just looking for a problem. Because you never can tell what kind of equipment you're going to have in the future. And so just leave it wide open and bring the equipment in, work on it, and get it out. But I don't think you need build stalls in there so somebody will have a place to hang their tools. All those tool chests are on rollers anyway. You can have a storage somewhere if you want to and put them away. But I would not be creating partitions in these places because you're just asking for trouble for that. This is not a garden place where we do that. It's a workshop, greasy and nasty. So I think you ought to consider that and make some changes there.
Tom Costi. I would hope that the board would reconsider its statement or its decision recently made about the going out for bids on the maintenance building before you see the plans. We're looking at a $1.4 million building. You haven't seen an elevation view. There isn't a homeowner association in the district that would approve putting up a new home without seeing an elevation view. Very difficult to believe. We're looking at a building, or we're considering a building that's going to be quite similar to the Avon Park maintenance building, that as you drive north on 27, you can see it from any part of the roadway going north. And this is going to be sitting right in the middle of a very highly concentrated upscale residential district in Sunny Lake. And you're not concerned with what the building's going to, what the elevation view of that building is going to look like? You'll be able to see it from Town Hall, you'll be able to see it from Columbus Boulevard, you'll be able to see it from Woods and Irons. Seems kind of short-sighted that you wouldn't want to see an elevation view before it goes out for bids. Secondly, I have a question about vehicles. When, before the district, 2.5 years ago, there was a general contractor, or outside contractor handling security in the district. They had one vehicle that had 140,000 miles on it. It was pretty rickety. I spent a lot of hours driving that around when I was working security. Today, just about every time I drive by Town Hall, I'll see two very new, brightly painted security vehicles parked at Town Hall. There's usually a couple of more white Ford Explorers sitting in the parking lot across the street from Town Hall, one of which always had security painted on the back of that vehicle. I'm curious to know, how many vehicles does the security department have now when they only have one on the road during the day? I don't think that the number of security workers is increased any from, although I think maybe there is one additional that's involved in code enforcement. But what's the status on these vehicles? What's the policy for replacing them, and how soon after one's is not needed is it disposed of?
We have 2 security vehicles and 1 code enforcement vehicle. 1 vehicle in security does have high mileage, but Michael Hurley and I need to discuss what we're going to do with the 1 vehicle. We haven't done so yet.
So there's two newer ones that are parked at Town Hall, right?
One brand new for code enforcement, yes, because the code enforcement vehicle was totaled in an accident.
I see.
And then we purchased another. We have a new security vehicle that we also purchased this year.
So then when we get through the purchase program where we piggyback on the state purchase plan for vehicles, when those vehicles, when they are delivered, do we immediately dispose of the previous vehicle that was, or does it sit around here until the end of the year?
Well, surplus has to be approved by the board. So we have approved a trade-in at the last vehicle that we purchased. The board did approve a trade-in.
Okay.
But typically, I mean, any surplus in the district has to be approved by the board.
Understand, but that's usually like a once a year type deal?
Once a year, typically.
Yeah. But insurance is still carried on those vehicles. I mean, the vehicle expense is still ongoing until we do dispose of it, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Larry Bertetto again. It was mentioned by someone who asked the question, what are we doing about code enforcement, or where are we progressing on that? It seems like that's sort of an ongoing thing that we keep getting, we're working on it. And it may be a small matter to some of you, but the way we solved handling some of our code enforcement is by someone who over the years, and I've been here 15, basically doesn't get out of his truck or his car and go handle a situation because he likes to do paperwork. So the way we solve that problem of that individual is we hire somebody else to do what he should be doing. Now, I have a problem with that. If I had, when I was working, I had an employee and they couldn't do the job, I fired them. Does this district ever want to, well, we did make the decision, but it took how long, for someone who's been around for how many years? That every 3 months, and you'll be getting an email from me shortly, because every 3 to 4 months I have to email the code enforcement man and tell him that the weeds are high again. Does he not see that? Do we don't need him? And I believe his salary is higher than the city of Sebring, and the county pays a code enforcement person. So why do we have code enforcement if the man doesn't do anything other than write paperwork? Because when I send him a letter to clean up something, it takes weeks to have a lot cleaned out because we've got to go through all these procedures. We never get out anymore, knock on the guy's door and say, clean it up. Now the next thing. Do we have to advertise in the Highlands today? After reading that article written by the gentleman who's not here today, it seemed a very one-sided article about what's going on in Sun and Lake. We really didn't need to know paragraph after paragraph of what happened in South Florida. And the headline of that, yeah, it's BERTETTO for your information. That ruins my property. The way that the reporter, and I'm for the Fourth Estate, let them write what they want, but let's be truthful. And let's don't go into innuendos and other things that destroy our property. If I put my house up for sale and someone looks at my house and they want to look, we'll say, golf hammock, and the realtor wants to sell that house in a golf hammock instead of here, all they have to do is put out this article. I resent the way that that newspaper has handled the dealings at Sun and Lake. The sports page will write favorable articles, which is good, and I'm for that. But we don't have to bring out all the negative. So I would like to see us make some kind of a resolution that we don't give any more advertising to the Highlands today. Let it all go to the competitor. I think the articles that we get out of the other newspaper are pretty fair articles, and they're factual without innuendos in there. Because basically the article has already taken our supervisors and molded their article, not through an editorial, but through writing the newspaper and condemning them already, and I dislike that. Thank you.
Bill Norcross, a resident, and a fresh face today. A couple quick comments. Sunshine Law. I don't know who would want to run for this procedures board if they really read that Sunshine Law word by word, because it is very restrictive. It was born on a necessity that has been mentioned, that there's been violation so many times of wrongdoing. I know up north that the press has been excluded many times from meetings because they are closed doors. The good intention was the Sunshine Law to have viability, open doors, open windows. That's okay, fine. When you get on the golf course, you're talking to somebody in a bus or truck or something, and you say, well, gee, there's going to be a meeting tomorrow. Can't talk about it. Can't talk about anything. That's a little bit too over the top. The only suggestion I would have is to have more open workshop meetings. If something has to be discussed in between our regular meetings, like we used to have a lot of workshop type of things, 24-hour notice, public is welcome, anybody can come in, talk about it, and that would certainly help as far as the sunshine law, as far as I'm concerned. Gator, can I have a picture of that maintenance area, please?
Yes, we can get you one.
The overview of, okay, I have a couple of questions. Now, as a golfer, you mentioned something about this is going to be a chemical clearing area. Well, we do hit golf balls there. Now, I'm worried about, because it was up here, okay? And I don't know what the reason why that you put it down here, and I think it would be kind of endangering the people, because these guys hit 300-yard golf ball shots. So I don't know if there's any plans to think about that a little bit more. Also, the west exit is a good idea, but also I think through lot 3 or 4, if you have an exit that is angled so you can't see in, I think would be a good idea. Just for emergencies, just general vehicles leaving, rather than going out this way, because you only have really 2 exits other than the main one. So that is a suggestion. I don't know what happened about having this road on Lot 10. What was the problem there?
We don't own the Lot 10.
You couldn't purchase it, all right?
The purchase price is pretty high.
And do we own 9 and 8?
Yes, sir.
What was the reason why we couldn't put the water up there?
Because that was the layout that the board approved and asked me to proceed with.
And the reason why they changed this fuel cleaning area, which is necessary, from up there to here? What was the reason?
That's where the driveway is at. We had moved it so that it would be on the way in. We wanted to be along with the driveway, and so when the driveway moved, that moved also. That was.
Well, what about the consideration from the driving range? You don't think they would be in danger? I think they would.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one thing, yes, we've discussed and talked about, but.
Okay, you're talking about a novice here taking a look at a plan, and I think it would be more functional if we looked at it again. Another little problem I'd like to bring up is a traffic pattern out here on Sun Lake Boulevard. And I've talked with the sheriff's office down there, and also Mike Hurley. Mike Hurley has agreed to send a letter affirming the suggestion that coming out of the schoolyard, say going west on Sun Lake Boulevard, and people turn into the schoolyard. Okay, fine. But people also coming out. There's a crisscross of traffic. Very, very dangerous. There's going to be a major accident there sometime. The suggestion was to revert back to, as you're coming out of the schoolyard, turn right only. And that's the way it used to be. All you have to do is put a sign up there, while it's a yellow light, please turn right. Now, it's a very simple request that doesn't cost a lot of money, and it's been approved before. So I'd like to have that under advisement and some thought being given to utilizing it. Thank you.
Rusty Carino. I'd like to make a couple of recommendations and a couple of comments here. First of all, to Tanya and the accountant, I'd like to see the budget summary. I hope it is going to be published. And my rationale for that is, I think it is a great selling point by publishing this in one of the local newspaper, Highlands News, whatever you suggest, because I think it's a great selling point. People get to see where their dollars are going. So I think you should follow suit, just like what Avon Park, Sebring, and Highlands County and the school board does. So I hope that we do this. The other item I like to think about making a recommendation, and that is the abolishment of the type of government that we have here, because it has outlived its usefulness. Today was a good reflection upon what I was talking about. We have two different distinct types of supervisors. You all should be equal. You should be all governed by the same rules, and you don't have to have a scorecard to keep track of who's a large landowner and who is the smaller landowner. Okay? So I think that needs to be addressed. I think.
Rusty, let me respond to that.
Yes, sir.
You have a lot of people that have made major investments in this community for years and years and just don't qualify because they don't live here year-round for the regular popular elected seats. Are you willing to deny those people that have made that investment, that comprise an important part of our community, without any kind of representation in this government?
Let me answer your question. First of all, I think our definition of large property owners has been distorted. If you take a look at the original...
I'm talking about residential
Let me answer my question,
properties.
please. If you take a look at what we come up with large property owners, that word has been distorted. And people have been saying so many times, large property owners, such as the Tanglewood, such as the hospital, such as NRPI. They are large land, they own a large amount of property, but where they distinguish, in my view, from the original concept of this charter was it was designed for the developer of this community who put in the infrastructure for the common goods of everybody. These people that I've just mentioned to you, Tanglewood, the hospital, NRPI, they did not do this. And that's why I'm saying we need to address, to make a adjustment for this type of situation. We are here basically for the people that are living in this community. If a person lives up in Canada or whatever, fine. If they want to come here, just like I lived in South Florida. Okay, for years I couldn't vote, and I accepted that. When I moved here and became a full-time resident, then I was issued those rights. So I see no problem. I think we need to adjust what we mean a large property owner, because it's like a story. Once a story is told, and it's told so many times, people start to believe that this is the definition of a large property owner. I think we need to abolish it. The system we have. We should have abolished this system when the large developer, I'm talking about the person that put the money up to build this community, when they went bankrupt and they turned their lots over to us. It should have been abolished then, and we should have reorganized into something more that is more meaningful to the people in this community. That's all I'm saying. We need, and we've seen the issues, the problems set forth today in the handling of different supervisors because you were labeled large a large landowner versus whatever, I keep forgetting the popular landowner seat. My next question, my next concern, I had a concern for the concern of responsibility. You board members all have a responsibility to yourself, to this community. It's called a fiduciary responsibility. Now, some people say, I don't know anybody in my right mind would sit in your seat. And I agree. I don't know of anybody in their right mind. But there are some people that are starting that have, I don't want a person to get up there and start making a track record where all of a sudden they have a swell head and they start saying things like this is their private domain, because that's when you overstep your responsibility, and that's when you get all of us in trouble. And when I say in trouble, I'm talking a lawsuit. And I don't care if it's in insurance, whatever, we're put up in front of public scrutiny through what your actions. All I'm saying is your actions, your deeds speak loud and clear. It's like the story of the guy that goes and he's in a foursome, plays golf, and he's terrible. And he's betting every week, and he's losing large sums of money. Okay? That guy has either a choice of either dropping out, continue paying the large sum of money, a supplement to his friends because he's losing, okay? Or he's going to have to get better. I'm of the philosophy, if you have to dig in your pocket and pay something, maybe you'll think twice about your actions and your deeds. And that goes for anybody. My next concern is our next attorney. In the selection of our next attorney, okay, I hope that you would take into consideration a person who is certified in municipal law, who has a good, strong experience in this respect. That I do not want an attorney who's what I call a facilitator. He can't handle it, but he's got to go find somebody else, which costs us more money. I think we should have a person that's certified, experience, and knowledge about municipal law. And I think that should be part of the criteria. And last but not least, I think all of you guys are doing a good job. I think you can do better. But I think all of you have done a great job. And my comparison is I've been around this community for about 10 years, 10, 11 years, okay? And I've seen firsthand what the other folks have done. I think each and every one of you have done a tremendous job. And I hope that you continue. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Back to the board. Any more comments?
Yeah, I have one, Kurt, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I want a clarification. You said that your attorney agreement was $1,500. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Does that cover litigation?
Yes.
I mean, they're going to represent you in court or trial and so forth for the total of $1,500?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There could be other charges, but basic court procedures, yes.
Tanya, have we heard any more about the Schumacher road improvement?
From the county, I have not yet.
No. You
No,
haven't?
sir.
Okay. Thank you.
As soon as I do hear something, I'll give an update.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
We'll have to sign this thing.
Another day in paradise.
Paradise. You want to sign that as GM, have her sign it as...